Six Flags Darien Lake is an extremely storied park featuring a very colorful history with many ups and downs throughout the years. The last 20 years for Darien Lake have been very wild and unfortunately have lacked stability for this park. Even before my coaster enthusiast days, I'd always heard from my parents that Darien Lake has always seemed like it's about to close because they would always hear that the park is changing management or is up for sale, which gave them the impression that Darien Lake is just an undesirable property. I don't really believe that to be the case. I feel that this park is really just a product of its environment. There's definitely a lot to look at when it comes to Darien Lake, so I recommend checking out the documentary I did on this park a little while back. Today I'll be focusing more on some of the effects that the events in Darien Lake's history have had on the park, and really focusing in on the last 25 years or so you can really see that there is a sharp turn in the way the park was treated during that time. Today, we'll be discussing the in-depth story on how a very simple yet devastating game called Hot Potato managed to screw Darien Lake's potential. One quick thing I'd like to say is thank you for 5,000 subscribers, as this video is coming out as part of a special for the channel hitting 5,000 subscribers, and I am very, very happy with that. And for that, I'd like to extend my thanks to all of you guys. I'm very grateful for how far this channel has come, and I'm excited to see where it goes in the future. Also, if you aren't subscribed, what are you doing? Make sure to subscribe for more awesome coaster content coming soon. Also, make sure to drop me a like as well, as that is the easiest way to help out the channel if you are already subscribed. Also, make sure to check out part 1 of the Troubled Park series about Six Flags Great Adventure, and with that being said, let the games begin. The game really started in 1995. Prior to this, Darien Lake had been in an extremely stable situation, as Paul Snider, the original developer of the property, had sold 50% of his stake in the park to Funtime Incorporated in 1983, 2 years after the park officially opened. Funtime slowly and methodically expanded the park by adding some major additions like the giant wheel and Predator throughout their 12-year tenure. During this time period, Paul Snider sold the rest of his stake in the park to Funtime, but that didn't really affect the park's day-to-day operations. Funtime added the Darien Lake Performing Arts Center, which further pushed Darien Lake to become a resort on top of the campgrounds at the park already. In 1995, the potato was tossed for the first time. Funtime would be acquired by Premier Parks, who were rapidly expanding at the time. The two other parks in this package would be Geauga Lake and Wyandotte Lake Park. From 1995 to 1997, the park would add a sky coaster, a new kids area called Popeye Seaport, a new mini golf course, a water park expansion, an indoor roller coaster called Nightmare at Phantom Cave, and Mighty Racer, plus a boatload of other park and infrastructure improvements. In 1998, the park received a $12 million hotel, which cemented Darien Lake as a full-on resort. That same year, the park installed Boomerang Coast to Coaster. The following year, the park underwent some massive changes as Premier acquired Six Flags, and Darien Lake was renamed to Six Flags Darien Lake for the first time. With that, they incorporated Looney Tunes and DC Comics into the park. The largest addition was Superman Ride of Steel, the first intimate hypercoaster that cost the park another $12 million. Looking at the time span in the late 90s, Darien Lake, a park with 3 roller coasters in 1995, had received 4 roller coasters in just a 4-year period. I think one thing to note is that a lot of smaller parks, like Six Flags America, also got a similar amount of investment at this time, but considering where the park is at today, this amount of investment is basically unimaginable in such a short period of time. Now, whether you think this was good or bad for the park, you can't deny that this disrupted the stability that Funtime had formed for the park during their tenure. The additions would slow down a bit in the 2000s, but there was still a good amount of consistency, and even Six Flags was working on plans to install another roller coaster to the park. The park got rides like Twister and Shipwreck Falls, plus a few water park upgrades. Darien Lake would also get the Big Kahuna and the Batman the Escape roller coaster from the recently closed Six Flags Astroworld. Batman was never built. As you could say, this coaster became the first victim of the game of hot potato. Six Flags was struggling financially, which led them to sell off some of their parks, and Darien Lake was one of them. Six Flags was looking to sell Darien Lake as part of a package including parks like Frontier City and Elitch Gardens. Six Flags would find a buyer at the beginning of 2007 called Park Management. In April of 2007, Six Flags completed the sale of Darien Lake and 6 other parks to Park Management. Park entered into a 50-year contract with C&L Income Properties, where C&L purchased the properties and they would lease them back to Park for operation. This contract would seem to be a theme of contracts the park would operate under in the future. In 2007, Park didn't have much time to make any major changes, so they basically just had to rebrand the park by removing Looney Tunes and DC Comics theming. In 2008, the park added Orange County Chopper's Moto Coaster, the first ever moto coaster model. This would also be the first coaster the park received in 8 years. Not much would change for 2009, but in 2010, the park's water park would get a massive expansion. That included a lazy river, a new water slide complex, a new kiddie wave pool, and some other general updates such as repainting older slides. Park also worked to upgrade the park itself by repainting Viper back to its original color and getting new trains for Predator. The park seemed to be trending in the right direction as the park was getting some good TLC during this time, but C&L ended up terminating their agreement with Park in 2010. After they defaulted on their lease obligations. In 2011, Herschend Family Entertainment took over the day-to-day operations of the park. Herschend is known for operating Dollywood and Silver Dollar City among other properties. The following year, Herschend added Rowdy's Ridge, which included a slew of new family rides. The year after, the park added an SNS drop tower called Blast Off, along with a newly rethemed waterfront boardwalk area of the park that included renovations to rides like the Giant Wheel and the Grand Carousel, along with new dining options. They also brought back the Scrambler for that year as well. Herschend Family Entertainment's lease ended after 2014 and was taken over by Premier Parks LLC. Premier would go on to add a Larson Superloop called Rolling Thunder in 2015 and Brain Drain, which is a set of Dropbox slides. The focus on the water park would continue with the addition of Rip Curl Racer in 2016. Prior to the 2017 season, C&L would sell off Darien Lake and 14 other properties to EPR Properties. Unfortunately, this resulted in some negative changes for the park. Ride of Steel lost one of its trains, which we don't really know what happened to, and this transition resulted in some other poor operational policies. Viper was scaled back to 1 train operations to save money, which doubles lines on the daily. The park also seemed to just cut corners all around, which is unfortunate. The one thing I did like about this era was the addition of Tantrum, a Gerstlauer Eurofighter, which sort of was an addition in their era. But the weird thing about the addition of Tantrum is that right when this ride soft opened, the park's operating rights would be acquired by Six Flags, yet the park would still be owned by EPR. Six Flags would go on to rebrand the park back to Six Flags Darien Lake in 2019, plus they would bring back Fright Fest for 2018 as well. They would also give the park a 240-foot tall skyscraper as well for 2019. The plan for 2020 was to overhaul the water park and rebrand it to Hurricane Harbor and add Wahoo Wave, but all of this has been delayed all the way until 2022 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In total, Darien Lake has changed hands 5 times in the last 20 years. There's very few parks that have survived that much change in a short amount of time. That's really the biggest upside to all of this. The park is still running. The bad news is the park has lacked a singular vision. When you walk around the park, you can feel all the different visions that each operator has had for the park. The next time you visit Darien Lake, just take a moment to take in certain things. It's honestly really easy to tell which areas Herschend did, the different rides that Premier added, the 90s Six Flags / Premier Heist. It's really cool from a coaster nerd perspective. However, all of this just has led to the park bathing in mediocrity. It's really funny how many locals will tell you that Darien Lake is the most average amusement park ever. If you think about it, Darien Lake has Ride of Steel and Viper as their main standout, unique rides to most people. And the rest of the coasters are just clones or just aren't very good. Darien Lake sort of feels like someone just owned an amusement park and wasn't quite sure what they were going to do with it. So they just put in a bunch of generic rides and made it a really generic feeling park. Since the addition of Ride of Steel, we've only gotten 2 roller coasters in Moto Coaster and Tantrum. Both fun rides, but also are just clones on the cheaper side, nothing near the investment of Ride of Steel or Viper. The only unique rides that this park has that are quote-unquote standout are Ride of Steel, Viper, and Predator. But the majority of people don't really like Predator, so that doesn't really count. There's also Moose on the Loose too, so don't forget that one. When Herschend ran the park, there were plans to install an RMC, but that never came to reality. Six Flags was slowly starting to make Darien Lake into an industrialized park, but that fizzled out due to their financial issues. I feel like Park was just getting started when their lease got terminated. For every owner or operator this park has seen, I just don't feel like anyone has had enough time to fully incorporate their vision into the park. This brings us to today. The park emerged from being closed for an entire season, and now Six Flags is finally looking to start implementing their vision into the park. The second Six Flags era has definitely been a very interesting one thus far, but I do think we should be happy that they took over the park. Premier didn't have a clear direction for this park, so I'm hoping this changes with Six Flags, as it seems they are trying to at least test out new things at the park, such as new seasonal events. Some of you may be at this point in the video and are thinking, oh, this guy just wants a new big coaster for the park, but Six Flags won't give it to you. You might be right about that, but the one thing that this park needs more than anything else is stability. Once Six Flags figures out what they want to do with this park, I can tell you with a massive concert venue, a hotel, and a campground, combined with a good population center to pull from, Six Flags will be able to give this park what it needs to be successful. Darien Lake is a decent park, nothing worth traveling the world for, but a decent time for the locals. Unfortunately, Darien Lake has been stripped of improving its quality due to a game of hot potato screwing the park. Will Six Flags hold on to this park for the long run, or will they just be a repeat player in the game? Only time will tell. We can only hope Six Flags will provide the stability that Darien Lake so desperately needs. I'd like to know what you guys think about all this in the comments below. My questions for you guys today are: which operator that Darien Lake has had in the last 20 years would have been the best long-term operator for the park? Also, do you think Six Flags will hold on to Darien Lake for a while, or do you think the game of hot potato will continue? Make sure to tell me all those thoughts down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave me a like and subscribe for more Troubled Parks videos coming soon. With all that being said, guys, I'd like to once again thank you guys all for 5,000 subscribers. And I'd like to thank you guys all for watching, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.